Welcome to Awesome Movie Year, the podcast where we take a look back at an awesome year for movies, which is every year. My name is Josh Bell, film critic and writer, and I'm here with my co-host.
Christmas.
Thank you, filmmaker and comedian Jason Harris, for that. In case you didn't realize it, it actually is not quite Christmas as this is being released because Christmas would have been a few days ago, but we are still in the Christmas spirit.
Because Christmas is all around us.
That it is. And so we are on our second of two Christmas bonus episodes for this year, both looking back to our season on the films of 2003. We talked about Elf in a previous episode, and now we are talking about Richard Curtis's Christmas romantic comedy, Love Actually.
Richard Curtis's beloved Christmas comedy, Love Actually.
It is beloved. I mean, as is Elf, and both of these come from our audience choice poll from the 2003 season when we had three options of beloved Christmas movies. And Bad Santa was the one that ended up winning in our poll, but quite a few votes for the others, and all, as we are saying, classics and beloved. So we figured for Christmas we'd get to them all.
Yeah, it was a tight race, and the people who voted for this were passionate about this. People who voted for Elf were passionate about that. So it makes sense. It's our Christmas bonuses to the audience, but maybe not to ourselves.
We enjoyed Elf, I think.
Yeah, we enjoyed Elf.
Yeah, so. And I don't mind this movie. We'll get into it.
No, it's fun. I'm being hard, but but it's always fun to talk about a movie whether you like it or not.
Absolutely, that's what we do here at Awesome Movie Year.
We
talk about movies whether we like them or not.
new catchphrase.
Yeah,
for us,
I like
Dave.
that.
Yeah.
So, Love Actually, regardless of whether you like it, was a big hit right out of the gate. It grossed $246.8 million on its budget of between 40 and 45 million. It was nominated for the Golden Globe for Best Picture, Musical or Comedy, and lost to Lost in Translation, which is neither a musical nor a comedy.
Right. Also nominated for Best Screenplay at the Golden Globe, I think.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? I think I missed that, but there you go. So, certainly a sensation right away. I mean, I remember people talking about this and going to see it and everything. So it's not one of these I feel like a lot of holiday favorites, Christmas favorites, it takes a while of people watching them every Christmas for them to become those holiday favorites. But this one was popular really right away.
Yeah, but I do think like it's steamrolled into something so much bigger since then. This is, like you're saying, one of those that will always be played around Christmas and now has such a larger audience because of that.
No, that's true. And I think this is sort of doubly popular because not only has it become this Christmas favorite, but as a romantic comedy, it's been really influential and it's permeated pop culture in the way that it approaches this romantic comedy stories, I think.
You're right, Josh.
Thank you.
You're right.
All right. So audiences, flocked to this movie. They gave it a B+ cinema score from the audience polling service, which was actually a little lower than I would have expected. This was a very crowd-pleasing film. Critics, not as into it, but reviews were mixed, let's say. And
your boy Ebert loved it, Josh.
Ebert, well, see, it's weird. Ebert gave it a 3.5 out of 4 stars, which would make you think that he loved it. But his review is kind of measured. I mean, I feel like this is one of these, and it comes up sometimes where the critics who liked it are sort of like embarrassed to have liked it, and they're trying to hedge their bets.
Hold on one second. Do you have a movie like that? Because you've been a movie critic for so long.
I mean, I try not to. I'm sure if I had prepared that answer, I could have come up with something. But my general philosophy is you shouldn't feel embarrassed or guilty about, there's no guilty pleasures. If you like something, then own that you like it. So I've certainly, I know something that you and I always have a contentious discussion of, which is the Charlie's Angels movies.
Well, the first one I liked, and the second one I didn't. I think you've kind of come around more towards realizing that you're
opposite. I rewatched both of them for an article. Maybe it was a couple years ago now, but I loved them both again.
Well, then you're still an idiot, Josh.
I'm glad we've established that. So, but yes, Roger Ebert did give it a 3.5 star rating, but he was, again, maybe a little conflicted on liking it. He said, Love Actually is a belly flop into the sea of romantic comedy. It contains about a dozen couples who are in love. That's an approximate figure because some of them fall out of love and others double up or change partners. The movie is written and directed by Richard Curtis, the same man who wrote 3 landmarks in recent romantic comedy: Four Weddings and a Funeral, Notting Hill, and Bridget Jones' Diary. His screenplay for Love Actually is bursting with enough material for the next 3. The movie's only flaw is also a virtue. It's jammed with characters, stories, warmth, and laughs, until at times Curtis seems to be working from a checklist of obligatory movie love situations and doesn't want to leave anything out. At 129 minutes, it feels a little like a gourmet meal that turns into a hot dog eating contest.
Well, so in certain ways, yeah, he hit the nail on the head. Like, originally, it was going to be developed as 2 separate films, one for the Colin Firth storyline, where his wife cheats on him and he goes to his cottage in France and falls in love with his housekeeper who does not speak the same language as him, which seems like a very rom-com style premise, right?
Right. Although I can't imagine watching a full feature film of that, especially because they don't speak the same language and can't really communicate.
You know who else couldn't? Richard Curtis.
Exactly. Yeah.
Smart
guy.
And the other one was the Liam Neeson character whose, wife died, and he, as the dad to the stepson, and the stepson falls in love and, is, he helps him with that in a completely ridiculous storyline.
Right. That
really doesn't make sense if you think about it, Josh.
Yeah, but I feel like that has maybe more potential for a feature because it's about the kind of father-son relationship more than it's about the kid falling in love with his classmate.
Almost like about a boy,
right?
Which is a better version of a storyline like that.
Well, that had a whole feature film to explore it.
Yeah, but yeah, no, it's a long movie. He does go after so many of those, yes, I'm trying to contextualize it because yes, a lot of this was like obvious and low hanging fruit, but in the same way now we probably think of it so much more of that because of this movie, right?
Right. No, that's true. Because of the parodies and the references and whatever, it's become shorthand for certain things.
Yeah.
But certainly the nature of this film, cramming all of those stories into even a longish feature film, means that you don't have time to really develop any of them other than those basic signposts.
That's kind of what he was going for on this one, right?
Right.
He mentioned Pulp Fiction as and Robert Altman as influences for this one.
Slightly better, but
he aimed high,
right?
And he landed at Love Actually.
Yeah, so. No, that's fine. I mean, and I do think that you get that opening voiceover from Hugh Grant talking about love being all around and whatever, and I think that establishes the tone of we're not going to be challenging the idea of love, or we're not necessarily looking here for dark, complex stories. This movie is a celebration of love, and in that sense, it's kind of simplistic, but that's what it's meant to be.
To credit it, though, not all of them are happy endings.
That is true, and I did appreciate that this time, which I had kind of forgotten.
Yeah. One other thing, Josh, because
yes.
you mentioned in the review those 3 movies, Notting Hill, Bridget Jones, and Four Weddings. Richard Curtis, whatever we think of this movie, is one of the most successful screenwriters of all time, especially in rom-coms and TV comedy in Britain.
Right. And I mean, those 3 movies, all I haven't seen in quite a while, but they're all really good romantic comedies, I think.
Yeah, and we liked his second feature, Begin Again, which I think, or Mixed. You remember Begin Again?
That's John Carney, the one with Keira Knightley.
The one, Beginning Time, Out of Time. You're Out of Touch, I'm Out of Time by Hall & Oates.
No, it's I wrote it down. It's about time.
About time. That's exactly what I said.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. Maybe that was his third. I don't remember. So.
Yeah, I think that's his third as a director.
Right.
But are you thinking of that movie?
That's the one and I have it written down as
okay.
About
I just
Time.
want to make sure that you didn't think that he directed that John Carney movie.
No, I love John Carney, as you know, because of our episode on Once, and I know that Begin Again is the only John Carney movie I haven't seen because it's supposed to be
it was directed by Richard Curtis.
That's what made it so much tougher to see it as a John Carney movie. No, because it's supposed to be like the corporate version of Once, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But they both, they both have Keira Knightley did them?
Not
or-
in About Time.
Richard Curtis and John Carney
We
have
could
both
just cut
worked.
all of this.
Have both
Dave.
worked with Keira Knightley. Leave it in, Dave. So no, I was going to say, yeah, mixed results on him, but he's very successful.
Yeah, I mean, but certainly prior to this film, with those three that Ebert mentions, like those were all not only whether we like them or not, the huge successes as romantic comedies.
Exactly.
So
and this one is too.
And this one was too, right? I mean, and it really kind of cemented him as like the romantic comedy guy.
Success is all around you.
Yeah,
if you're Richard Curtis.
All right, there we go.
Nice.
So Todd McCarthy in Variety was pretty positive. He said, "A roundly entertaining romantic comedy, Love Actually is still nearly as cloying as it is funny. Grandly conceived by contemporary British genre master Richard Curtis as a mosaic of love stories that collectively stress the primacy of amour even in difficult times, this doggedly cheery confection persists in going overboard with smiles, hugs, kisses, and musical reassurances that all you need is love. But its cheeky wit, impossibly attractive cast, and sure-handed professionalism are beguiling all the same. Qualities which, along with its all-encompassing romanticism, should make this a highly popular early holiday attraction for adults on both sides of the pond," which of course was true.
Yeah, I agree with him that, like, I mean, and again, to give Curtis credit here, like he went all in on the sentimentality or the sappiness, and like he's not holding that back, right? He's not trying to tell you he's doing something that he's not doing, right? So I give him a lot of credit in that regard. Like, even if it's not for me, again, I feel like I'm qualifying a lot of my statements. I'm trying to be fair because this movie is so beloved, and Dave's wife Gina's in the other room. And if I say the wrong thing, she might stab me in the neck with an
Man, you've really
With a
attributed
candy
some
with a candy cane. She loves
intense
this
malice
movie.
to Gina there.
Well, I know she's violent.
You do you know that?
That was the end of my statement there. So,
Okay.
no, I was writing down, like, you watch and you're like, set piece, crowd pleasing set piece, another set piece you can play in montage, set piece you can play on TV, and there's just every storyline almost has one of those set pieces.
Right. But I mean, I think you're right, is that, again, going back to that opening narration, is that he tells you basically immediately what kind of movie this is, and you're on board with it or not. And he delivers exactly what he says he's going to deliver.
Right. And that opening narration is played against real footage of people getting, coming off of airplanes at Heathrow Airport and reuniting with their loved ones. And it was shot by like 10 cameras, I think, like probably, undercover camera crews. And once they got the reactions, they asked if they could use it. So, again, love was all around them, Josh.
That it was. So A.O. Scott in the New York Times hated this movie. It's quite an epic takedown. I would have loved to quote just almost the entire thing because it's very, very mean. But I pared it down here. He said, "A romantic comedy swollen to the length of an Oscar-trawling epic, nearly 2.25 hours of cheekiness, diffidence, and high-tone smirking. It is more like a record label's greatest hits compilation or a, quote, very special sitcom clip reel show than an actual movie. Love Actually is a patchwork of contrived naughtiness and forced pathos, ending as it began with hugging and kissing at the airport, where returning passengers are perhaps expressing their relief at being delivered from an in-flight movie like this one.
Whoa.
The loose ends are neatly tied up, as they are when you seal a bag of garbage, or if you prefer, rubbish." So that's a sampling of how much he hated this.
The thing about a greatest hits compilation, Josh, is if that's your entryway into an artist, you might, go deeper if you like those hits, right? So in that regard, maybe this has turned other people on to other British comedies, rom-coms, other movies by these actors or filmmakers. So, again, there's two sides of the coin, A.O. Scott, just like trash and rubbish.
Yes. No, but I think you're right, is that if you watch this movie and like it, you might watch another Richard Curtis movie. You might check out Richard Curtis's TV work. You might watch a Hugh Grant movie or a Liam Neeson movie or an Emma Thompson movie, all of which have lots of great options available.
Yeah, and the humor is very British, I'd say, in a not as dry as some of the British humor I like, but it's still British in its way. So it might lead you down to looking at other British comedies, Josh.
Yes.
And did you see I did not use an accent. I just changed my voice an octave.
Way to go.
I'm really doing good in this episode.
This is
I like it.
some gold that we've got here.
Yeah, I agree, Josh.
So this movie was huge in 2003. Did you see it then, Jason?
No. And
okay.
I can tell you, what I noticed is in a recent episode I talked about, you and I have switched places because I liked when we were digging deeper into your romantic failures and I went into mine. I remember my girlfriend, maybe the next year or the year after, it was around Christmas time, and she wanted to watch this with me. And I wanted to watch it with her, but then I was like working all morning. And then she watched it, and I was like, oh, man, I thought we were going to watch it together. And we're not together anymore, Josh.
Shocking.
So I think I watched it, because it's so obligatory. At some point, I just watched it to see what all the rage was about. And then I watched it again for this movie podcast.
Both times alone.
Yep. Sadly. You're right. Sad state of affairs.
Yeah. No, that's okay. I watched this alone as well. I think I watched it not in the theater, but I remember being interested in watching this, maybe because I had enjoyed a previous Richard Curtis movie.
Yeah.
Or just because I'd heard good things about it and, like renting it and probably watching it alone and enjoying it. Like not loving it, but thinking, yeah, that was nice. And I think in the subsequent years, as we'll probably talk about, it's become it's so beloved among certain people. And then I think because of that, the people who dislike it, there's just become this huge backlash to it that's really overly intense, I think, for what a movie like this would warrant, even if you don't like it. So it's become this like division among people.
Yeah.
Of whether you like it or not. There was some Letterboxd review that I was looking at with this person going into all of this detail about how watch out if you may not realize it, but one of your loved ones loves Love Actually, and saying it as if you're discovering that your loved one is like a racist or something, or is in the Klan.
Yeah. Well, like we keep saying, love is all around us, but backlash is all around love.
That is so true.
So this is your second time watching?
I mean, probably it's possible I watched it somewhere in between there for some reason, but I don't recall. I mean, it's one of those things that's so ubiquitous in pop culture that you see a clip or like a parody of it, and it's hard to remember, like, did I actually watch that whole movie? But I still think it's fine. Yeah. I think it's totally fine. So, Dave, did you watch this with Gina first or before then?
I honestly can't remember. Like, I feel like I had seen this back when it came out, but maybe not. It's like it kind of runs together with a lot of similar romantic comedies, but we've watched it together a few times.
See, and they're still together. So you proves my point about my failed relationship.
So because they watched it together, they're still together, and no.
That's
what is your point?
Richard Curtis is the glue.
Yeah, come on, everyone can see this. Why can't you see this?
All right.
By the way, I think going back to what you were just saying about people who just really overhate this movie, I feel like it's kind of become one of those things, almost like, oh, did you know Die Hard is a Christmas movie? It's like it's just become part of people's personalities to hate this movie.
Right. And I don't know why, of all the movies that people love that are sappy, that this one inspires such extreme, rather than just, oh yeah, I don't really like that.
Well, you can argue that so many of the things are oversimplified, and if you actually think about it, like things would never work out that way, and that could make you angry because people just are going with it without being like, hey, but could this happen like this?
Well, sure, but that's not the only movie that's true of.
That's most rom-coms.
Yeah. Not the only beloved movie.
I get it. Maybe because people that do you think the Christmas element has something to do with it?
I think that
too?
might be. I think it's a combination of like the sappiness of a romantic comedy and the sappiness of a Christmas movie, and people who can't stand either of those things, and then suddenly they're like together. I mean, obviously there's a million, there's Hallmark churns out hundreds of these.
Many of them inspired by this.
Absolutely. But those, I think by virtue of there being so many of them, there isn't like one to focus on,
Yeah.
And so this becomes like the example of like the
You're right.
nadir or the zenith of it, depending on how you look at it.
No, you're 100% right. If you say romantic comedy Christmas movie, this is the one you would think of immediately. Right?
Yeah.
Like if I say, kid a comedy fighting robbers and punching them in the balls, I'd think of Home Alone, Josh. That's a genre,
I would love to know what other movies are potentially in that genre that aren't sequels to Home Alone.
Damn it. You took my answer from me.
All right. Well, anything you want to add on the background here, Jason?
Josh, this soundtrack hit number 1 on the UK album charts. Guess how long it stayed on that chart?
7 weeks.
348 weeks.
Not at number 1 though.
No.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, that would be crazy, Josh.
Yes, it would.
We mentioned how, this is an ensemble piece, all these stories tied together. I think there are 10 in the movie. They filmed 12 and there were 14 written.
Right. And I don't know if the 2 that were filmed but not in the movie, I should have looked. I watched this on the DVD if the scenes were on there or not.
I didn't see it. I know one was about a maybe middle-aged or older lesbian and her dying lover. And,
Well, that would have been good to get some like queer representation in here, which it doesn't have.
Yeah. Also, I think, that could have showed a different side of love, right?
Right. And maybe that was one of the reasons that he didn't want to get too morbid with it or whatever. We've got Liam Neeson's dead wife, but that's all off screen. So, we can, and he really gets over it remarkably well in this movie.
Claudia Schiffer's there.
That's true. That always helps.
Yeah.
All right.
So I think that's about it for my background there, Josh.
All right. Well, we'll come back in a moment and talk about our general thoughts on Love Actually. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this special holiday episode, looking back at our season on the films of 2003, we are talking about Richard Curtis's Christmas rom-com juggernaut, Love Actually. And we've said a lot of critical things, so I want to start, Jason. What was your favorite storyline in Love Actually?
Probably the one I enjoyed the most was Bill Nighy as Billy Mack, because he is wonderful, and he's wonderful in everything. He's Bill Nighy, right? And that's the aging rock star who knows he made Love Is All Around, Christmas Is All Around, the Trog song, and he's like, it's not good, but we could make it number 1, and he has a lot of fun with it, and he just doesn't seem to care, if he's embarrassing himself or whatever. He'll do what it takes, and that was a fun one. Also, that's a nice moment of friendship between him and the manager.
That's true. Yeah, it's again an effort maybe for Curtis to find a different like kind of love. Like here's platonic love. You know, here's 2 people who have known each other all this time and just are finally really appreciating each other as people, not in a romantic sense.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that between us, Josh.
So we can get together on Christmas and get drunk and watch porn.
Well,
as they do, which seems like a weird activity for 2 platonic male friends to engage in.
Positive we've probably spent time together on Christmas.
I'm sure that we have.
And
Not doing those activities.
Movies,
yeah, definitely not.
And we've drank beverages.
Right. Drink beverages and watch movies. Almost the same thing.
You're almost there.
Yeah.
We're like one big, Christmas song away from making this happen, John.
Yeah, of course. So, but yes, of course, Bill Nighy is great in this film. And he's sort of like the through line. He doesn't actually connect with any of the other characters, but he's always in the background as they hear his song and they see him on TV. And, that also ties into the whole Christmas aspect because it's a Christmas song and he's trying to get it to be the Christmas number 1 on the charts and all that. And it's very nice.
Yeah. And you had mentioned the connection between characters. Every other character is kind of connected in some way. Not necessarily all to each other, but one is connected to the next, to the next, to the next.
Right. And that's kind of the Altman-y thing. If you think of like, especially Shortcuts, which is I think the movie that people always think of for that kind of format from Altman. And they almost all of them come together there in the final, the Christmas pageant with all the kids
and the airport at the end.
Yeah, well, right at the very end in the sort of the epilogue.
Yeah,
but the climax of so many of those stories takes place at the Christmas pageant.
Was this also your favorite story?
I mean, it's nice. It's not as much of a storyline. I mean, if you want to talk about like, I don't know, actually feeling the romance of it, I guess I like the Hugh Grant, even though it's super problematic as like a workplace. There's so many inappropriate workplace interactions in this movie. But the Hugh Grant as the prime minister who falls in love with his, I don't even know what she is, some household staffer, played by Martine McCutcheon. I thought they had good chemistry, and Hugh Grant is so likable as this ridiculous lovelorn prime minister figure, which you do not want this guy like running your country. But as a rom-com character, I thought he was very pleasant.
3 set pieces. He had 3 set pieces, Josh.
Right.
He had the dance after he stood up to the president, to the Pointer Sisters, jump for all your love.
Yeah.
Which is a very funny moment.
Yeah.
He had the big kiss at the end, right? At the pageant when they raised the curtain.
Yeah.
And the kind of going from door to door to find the right woman was another big set piece there.
All fun, I thought.
But you're right. But, you know, it's sad, Josh, that these two just can't have love in the modern world because people like you and your ilk find workplace romance unacceptable anymore. You know how many couples wouldn't be together if they didn't work together, Josh?
I'm just saying that there's a lot of the way that these romances are set up in the workplace, too. Like, for example, okay, there's the stand-ins, the kind of small storyline with Martin Freeman. They're the 2 actors who are working on a film set, and they're coworkers, and they...
Joanna Page is
there you go, Joanna Page, and they're in all of these very uncomfortable situations for this movie that they have to recreate sex scenes in.
Right. So they're you know, standing in so they can, the crew can check the lighting and the camera angles and make sure everything's right for when the stars of the movie come in.
Right, exactly. And so through the course of this, they kind of get to know each other, and then they have a nice little date together. That is a workplace romance that I feel like that's the right kind. It's like they're at the same level. They're just equal coworkers who come together, have a nice conversation, and decide that they like each other.
Oh, I see, Josh. You believe in a caste system like in India. You could only fall in love with someone at the same level of you financially. You can't fall in love with someone who's richer or poorer than you. Good to know, Josh.
You perfectly can. But I mean, I think there's a definite... You see, and it's not just the falling in love. I mean, in that Hugh Grant storyline, when he realizes that he's like uncomfortable about being in love with her because he's her boss, he has her transferred to we never find out where.
Right. But do you think, is that the right move? Because now he's like, hey, I can't work with this person because I'm in love with her, but she's still gonna have a job. Just not away from me.
Did she want that other job that he gave her? Is it the same salary? Is it a similar prestige and duties? I mean,
Josh, he's got a country to run, man.
I don't think he's doing a lot of that, really.
If he wants his intern to do naughty things with his cigar, wait, I'm not going down this road. Never mind.
Yeah. And I mean, even in terms of the coworkers, like not the ones who are in love, like Alan Rickman's character, right? He is the boss of something, generic company,
advertising, maybe,
I don't know, whatever. And Laura Linney is his employee, and she is in love with her coworker, played by Rodrigo Santoro. And Alan Rickman, her boss, calls her in for a meeting and is like, "Hey, I know you're in love with your coworker, so make that happen." Like, your boss should not tell you this.
Yeah, I miss the good old days.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, we can move on from that complaint.
Okay, let me tell you these storylines that I hate. Okay. So first of all, the Colin and Tony storyline. Colin, played by Chris Marshall, who can't get laid. That's basically his storyline.
Right. He can't get laid because he's a dick.
Yeah, but he's like, I can't get laid here in Britain, but my accent is good enough to get me some sex over there in America.
Because he's from Australia.
That wasn't Australia, and that was like Cockney, maybe, I think. So he goes to America. We see him in one scene in the bar.
Yeah.
Then he goes, and because he has a British accent and he's in a bar in America, he has a 4-way with Ivana Milicevic, January Jones, Alicia Cuthbert, and Shannon Elizabeth.
And that is incredibly ridiculous and dumb. I will say, in defense of that storyline, it's so over the top ridiculous that to me, watching it this time, I took it as like a parody of the idea that British accents are sexy and that Americans will fall for anyone with a British accent.
I mean, if it's a parody, though, where does that fit within the rest of the movie?
Right. I mean, that's true, is that you could argue that its tone is off compared to the earnestness of the rest of the stories. But I was like, there's no way that Richard Curtis thinks that this is as, emotionally resonant as the rest of these love stories. He's doing it as sort of, it's a joke. I mean, obviously it's a comedy, but it's a meta commentary. I'm trying to give it a little credit there. I felt like there's no way he means for you to take that seriously.
Even if I take your argument right on your side, I would say Richard Curtis has written much better comedy than that.
Well, and that's fair. But I to me, especially in the scene with the women in the bar where they keep saying about their absurd circumstances, like, oh, we only have one bed and we all sleep it naked.
Yeah.
It's like it builds on the ridiculousness.
I get
of
it, but it's again, it doesn't even play out right because they go back to their place, which is a giant house.
Well, maybe they just rent a room in the house.
The whole thing doesn't ring true. And then, they go back to England and Shannon Elizabeth doing a Southern accent.
Well, Shannon Elizabeth is not a good actor, and I think we can all acknowledge that.
This is probably the worst I've seen her act with that accent. She's like, hey, y'all, I brought my roommate. Hope that's okay. And it's Denise Richards. And then she looks at the other British guy and he's like, you're British. I love you. Fuck. Let's fuck. It's horrible, Josh.
Yeah.
So that's one I don't like.
Okay.
All right. I got two more for you.
All right.
That just
go for
infuriate me.
Take it away.
What's the most famous scene in this movie, Josh?
Right. The cue cards.
The cue cards.
Yes.
So Peter, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, right? Is that how you pronounce his name?
Yeah. Chiwetel Ejiofor. Yeah.
Yeah. Marries Juliet, played by Keira Knightley. That's how you pronounce her name.
That is. And
Mark is the best man, right?
Yes, he's Peter's best friend.
Yeah, and that's Andrew Lincoln.
Yes.
Rick Grimes.
Right, before he was Rick Grimes.
Yeah. And so this is what happens, right? So Juliet and Peter think that Mark doesn't like Juliet because he's cold to her.
Yes.
But really he's secretly in love with her.
Correct.
And he, when she finds out because of the way he shot the wedding, he did all these kind of cool,
because
nice.
He's a creepy stalker.
This is where I'm getting at. Like,
right.
He did some cool things for them at the wedding where he had like the band. That was a good set piece.
Yeah, that was
the band
nice.
play "All You Need Is Love."
Right.
So then he shoots it like if you just put different music underneath it, it would be like a single white female type thing, right?
Yes.
And he's like, hey, I the reason you think I don't like you is I have to be cold for self-preservation, right? Because I care about my friendship with Peter, right?
Right.
So then on Christmas, he goes and he tricks Peter by say it's some carolers, and he plays a Christmas song. And on cue cards, he's like, I love you. I don't expect anything, but I'm in love with you and you're perfect. You're the worst best friend there is, Mark. You're the worst best friend. Shame on you.
Yeah.
You're a piece of crap, Mark.
Right. And I mean, and really, he's doubly a piece of crap because not only is he a terrible best friend, but he's also, with this woman that he supposedly loves, putting her in like a horrible position there as she stands at the door.
I mean, yeah, he's just horrible. He's a bad person. And I mean, if he had just gone to Peter and been like, Peter, you're my best friend. I know I never talked to your wife, but somehow I'm in love with her. I'd have been like, at least you're honest, dude. At least you're trying to save something here. But now you're just being the worst of all kinds. Like, you're lying to your friend. Like you said, you're putting your best friend's wife in a position. And it's just like, why do people think this is like a good moment on film?
Yeah, well, because it's a good moment, like divorced of that context. The construction. No, I mean, you're talking about the set pieces in this movie.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are great in and of themselves and maybe don't necessarily fully work in the context of their story, or they're not fully earned in the context of their stories. So I think as a romantic gesture kind of thing, if this was a different sort of movie and the story of the movie was she was married to Chiwetel Ejiofor and was unhappy.
Right. Who doesn't treat her well.
Right,
and
exactly.
He doesn't treat Mark well.
Right.
None of that's there.
No, I agree. But so I'm just saying is that as a romantic moment is really good, is really well constructed. and is the kind of thing that Richard Curtis is good at creating. And so I think that's the reason why it's so familiar to people. You know, you if you see a moment from this movie, it's almost always that moment.
It's just, as you said, you use good terminology. It's unearned.
Yeah.
And therefore not only is meaningless, but infuriating.
Right. No, I mean, and I agree with you on that point. And it's weird, but you're meant to think it's nice, of course. And then he leaves, he says, right, oh, I don't expect anything. So he just gives that message and walks away. And then she runs after him and gives him a kiss. But you, I think, are meant to think that that's like her like acknowledgement, like, here's this, that's all you're going to get.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's enough. And he says it very quietly to himself. And then we see them in the epilogue at the 1 month later, I think it is, at the airport. And they're all friends. They're all hanging out. It's all good.
And Peter is a dumb idiot who doesn't realize any of this has ever happened, right?
Right.
So that one really bothered me.
Okay. Oh, there's one more.
Oh, there's one more.
Okay, Josh. Let's hear it.
Look, I get it, man. We talked about Liam Neeson, Daniel, and now he's got Sam, his kid, and Sam's in love with a classmate. And his theory is, if I learn to play an instrument, I will get her because girls like musicians. And
she herself is a musician. She's a singer.
So he learns to play the drums.
Yes.
And Josh, tell me, Josh, does he play the drums alone, or is there a band that also plays backup?
Yeah, there's a whole band. He's in the drum band.
And who is this band? What is this band comprised of?
It's just like the school band.
Oh, other kids?
Yeah.
So what's the point? You can't just be like, I'll learn the drums and then she'll love me. If that's the case, then he's got to take out all these other musicians that she might also love. Again,
it just doesn't make this storyline.
It doesn't make sense, Josh. And also the whole storyline goes for naught because she's supposed to leave for America to move there, and then a month later she's back anyway.
Well, she may just be coming back to visit,
Yeah, people always come back to visit in the middle of January once school restarts.
I mean,
once you go to a new school,
they used to live,
Josh,
that they might still have relatives.
She's moving to a new school, and her parents are like, "Hey, now that you've been in your new school for 1 week, go visit Sam." Like, come on, man.
I feel like your objections to this storyline are like nitpicky when you could object to the big picture of it.
Which is what do you want me to object to?
Well, no, I actually like this storyline.
Yeah,
because I think all of the stuff that you're nitpicking is really not important, because it's not about the kid being in love with the classmate. It's about the stepdad finding a way to bond with his kid.
Yeah, but he gives him just not great advice there. But again, more set piece go. Not only do we have the literally the run to the airport, right, which is a screenwriting term, we have a run through the airport, Josh.
Yes, and they have to, because it's post 9/11, they have to figure out a way for the little kid to get past airport security. Yeah. And endanger all of the passengers in this airport.
Right. But the one thing I'll give credit to is on that storyline is I did find, as I often do find it, Rowan Atkinson is quite hilarious as Rufus, the gift wrapper who's going way overboard, and he comes back for the callback to help the kid while he's at the airport, and
right, he just does everything very slowly.
Yeah. So and of course Richard Curtis has a long history with Rowan Atkinson as a writer on the Mr. Bean Show and the movie. So
yes.
So those are the ones that really bothered me, I'd say.
Okay. All right. I will say, again, with that Liam Neeson storyline, I liked that it was, again, where it's looking at sort of a different kind of love. It's a familial love. It's about this guy. And
I agree. I would like to have seen that in a more honest representation, Josh. And
right.
I mean, I think, the one I might like the most is the Harry and Karen and Mia, which is Rickman and Emma Thompson and Heike McCatch. Is that her name?
Sure.
Where she's like his secretary and she's like the hot young thing and she's overtly flirting with him.
I mean, that's putting it mildly, really.
Yeah,
she's basically like jumping his bones all the time in the office.
And she's just like, give me a Christmas present. He buys her the romantic necklace. And honestly, the present that he got his wife wasn't a bad present given the context of the movie, because she said, I love Joni Mitchell. It frees me up. And he bought her like a Joni Mitchell album on CD, whatever.
I mean, she probably, if she loves Joni Mitchell, probably already owns all
that.
Of Joni
that's
Mitchell's
fair too,
albums.
right? And then, she knows that the necklace is being given to someone else. He doesn't sleep with her, which I think is good. Like, he didn't go that far out, like, oh, I banged her at the Christmas party or something like that. But he's like, hey, I thought that was the most honest stuff, the Emma Thompson stuff, where he's like, you not only made a fool of me, but like this life that I've given you. You're out there working. I'm here taking care of our kids. What does this mean if you're not going to respect that? I thought not the most entertaining, but that was the most honest stuff. So that and the Hugh Grant stuff, probably the best stuff.
Right. No, I do like that. I mean, it helps too that I mean, Alan Rickman and especially Emma Thompson are really, really good.
Yeah.
And that it's not only is it a story where like the love doesn't really work out, but it's not your standard cheating story.
That's what
where,
I mean, yeah.
Right. She's like, how dare you? Now I'm going to divorce you. And, you know, the epilogue would have her like, you know, with some new relationship,
yeah.
you know, and he's miserable
I
because
miss my kids.
because the secretary left him or something. In the epilogue, they're still together and still also clearly unhappy.
Yeah.
You know, so I did appreciate that. I also kind of appreciated the Laura Linney storyline where she's in love with her coworker and she finally is able to kind of hook up with him and it's reciprocated. And then during their hookup, she's interrupted by her brother that she kind of takes care of. He keeps calling her. He's mentally ill and is in some sort of institution. And, you know, she obviously cares about him very much and he's a priority for her. And, you know, her coworker who she's been in love with for, as Alan Rickman points out, I don't know, years, I guess. Yeah. Like, is just kind of a dick. He's like, oh, you have to help your family? Bye.
Well, and then what is the resolution there? There's no resolution between the two of them, right?
Not really. I mean, there's a moment where she's in the office again late at night and he leaves and he just basically kind of says bye. And to me, that resolution was like, yeah, nothing, they're not going to be together. All that time she was supposedly in love with him. And in one moment, it was like, they're clearly not compatible because he doesn't understand her devotion to her family.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a good scene with her and the brother in the institution.
Okay.
Dave, what do you like or dislike about this movie?
I like a lot about this movie. And by the way, Gina just messaged me from the other room that the British voice in the bar thing would definitely happen in real life. So.
Gina, come in here, please. You have friends that would have an orgy with a man just because of a British accent? Really? What about like a New Jersey accent? Bummer for me.
Maybe if you go to England, though.
Yeah, it's tough to go overseas. Yeah. Gina, can I meet your friends?
Yeah.
So, go on, Dave.
Yeah. No, it's just a fun movie. You know, like you guys have kind of covered like most of, you know, the best stories that are in it and all. And it's certainly a little bit of a mixed bag from story to story. But overall, it's just like a fun movie for the holidays.
Yeah, and I think even the stuff where there's a lot of problems logically, or, you know, things that are like problematic that I pointed out, I feel like so much of it, you think like, I don't know about this, but the acting is so good like across the board that they sell almost everything in this movie.
He's a good director, you know, sharp writer, obviously. I do think maybe it was McCarthy or A.O. Scott. Way too long, man. You cut 20 minutes, you gain more out of this thing.
I guess
2 hours and 15 minutes too long.
Yeah, I suppose. But because it's so many different storylines, I never felt like with any of the stories, like, oh, this is going on too long. Like, get to the point already.
Well, I mean, I think they could have cut that whole one that we just talked about with Gina's friend sleeping with the guy.
Yeah, that's not 20 minutes worth of the movie, though. That's
no, but that you could have cut that storyline and the movie would have been just as good, I think.
Yeah.
Or better.
Right. Maybe so.
One other thing I wanted to mention, too, is this maybe goes a little bit more into the legacy and like movies like this that have come since, but I feel like this is such like a movie, you know, where just everything about it just feels so cinematic and so much like a movie, and you don't really get that much anymore, and that's part of like the charm and appeal of it.
I want to say one thing about that. It's like I really liked that I felt like I was in London there, you know, like all the places. It looked like it was a good, like you're saying, like it felt like Christmas on screen in this particular place.
They used all of their resources really well to make a movie. You know?
Right. And I think especially romantic comedies and like mentioning all those Hallmark movies, like those all have budgets of like $4.
Right.
And they don't look like movies at all. And I feel like romantic comedies, maybe, you know, much like horror movies, for example, they have this built-in audience of people who will watch anything in that genre. Yeah. And that leads to the people who make the movies not respecting the audience and not putting effort in. And this is a movie where you can see that effort on screen.
All right, guys. All
So
right.
Jason's done.
Humbug over there.
All right. So
Wait, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Because we talked about all these set pieces. Did you guys have a favorite set piece?
I do like the Hugh Grant knocking on all the doors because it gives him so many moments to be like flustered, cute
Yeah.
Hugh Grant in those when he goes to the different doors. And there's a couple like this movie is very sunny and endearing, as we keep saying. There are a couple of like throwaway weird jokes. And the one I remember is when Colin Firth, he's going to visit his extended family, all these characters who we've never seen before. And he shows up at the door with all the presents and his whole family. They're like, Uncle Jamie, we love you. And then immediately he's like, oh, wait, no, I have to leave and go get my Portuguese love slave. And all the kids are like,
I hate Uncle Jamie.
Exactly. And not just one. You're like, that's funny. But then like four, they're just like, I hate Uncle Jamie. I hate Uncle Jamie. So I like that moment.
I did. And actually, when he goes to get the woman and then he meets the woman's dad, and then the woman's dad makes fun of the other daughter because she's fat, Josh.
Oh man, there's so many. We didn't even get to how many awful fat jokes are in this movie.
Oh, you're the one to marry her. She's the fat one, right?
Yeah.
Like really classy.
It's really terrible. Yeah.
But when the whole family, even the fat sister, is like following him and walking to the restaurant, that's nice.
Yeah, that is kind of nice. And it also gets undercut with some jokes when the sister is like, father is going to sell my sister as a slave to this Englishman,
Right.
that points out like the absolute absurdity of these characters who've never really spoken to each other.
No one wants to buy me because I'm a defetso.
Yeah, there's that too.
Dave, did you have a favorite set piece?
I don't really have a specific one. I mean, there's just lots of really fun stuff spread throughout it. And I mean, I guess it is a great version of the running through the airport scene. So that's a good one.
Yeah. So Jason, out of 5 runs to the airport, how would you rate this?
It gives me 2.5 airport runs, Josh.
All right. I'm going to give it 3. And I think overall it's fine. So Dave?
I'm going with 3.5. It's a really fun movie.
All right.
Hey, Josh, this is one your sister loves too, right?
I don't know if she does actually. Maybe. I'm not sure.
Well, maybe there needs to be a sequel where you and your sister reconcile.
Over what exactly?
Sorry, I got too personal.
Okay, then. She listens to this podcast. We have a lovely relationship.
I still care about you, Brandy.
We'll come back in a moment and talk about the legacy of Love Actually. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this special holiday episode, looking back at our season on the films of 2003, we are talking about Christmas romantic comedy Love Actually. And as we've kind of referenced, I mean, this movie has become a juggernaut as a Christmas movie, as a romantic comedy. I think one of the biggest legacies here is just parodies and references, especially the cue card scene that we keep talking about. Yeah. There's so many different versions of that. And, this is the go-to thing. If people think of a romantic comedy, it's still this movie, really.
Yeah, this is the staple Christmas romantic comedy. I agree with you on that.
Yeah. So this was the directorial debut for Richard Curtis, who'd worked as a writer on a lot of things, as we'd mentioned. As a director, he hasn't had a huge career. Jason eventually mentioned About Time, the sort of time travel-y romantic comedy with Domhnall Gleeson and Rachel McAdams.
Bill Nighy, right? Again.
And Bill Nighy, too, which is, it's okay.
It's okay. Again, there was something that the main character did that just infuriated me from a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot. Richard Curtis good at writing romance, not good at writing sci-fi. I think there are so many ridiculous plot holes in that movie. Not good at
writing logic.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of which, he also wrote the What If the Beatles Didn't Exist movie Yesterday, directed by Danny Boyle. Another movie short on logic.
Was that good?
Nah,
And Pirate Radio, he directed.
Yeah, that he directed, also with Bill Nighy, I believe, which was also the. And he's branched out beyond romantic comedy. He wrote Steven Spielberg's War Horse. And I mean, if Richard Curtis came back, if it was like a new Richard Curtis romantic comedy is coming, people would be super excited.
Yeah, and you would think that like one of the streamers would try to get that like right now,
Yeah, I'm not sure what he's working on at the moment, but I'm sure he'd be a hot commodity.
I can tell you.
Oh,
Josh.
please do.
But I did want to, like I mentioned, Mr. Bean, Blackadder, The Vicar of Dibley. He's done a lot of big British TV.
Yes.
He's writing the script for the new Little Mermaid.
Oh, That could be okay, I guess. Is that the Disney one or there's like multiple
Yeah,
versions?
there is. I wonder.
The New Little Mermaid.
All right. Well, that's good enough. Who knows if these movies will even be made?
I also want to give him credit because he's one of the founders of British Comic Relief, and we're going to talk about Red Nose Day, which is related to that.
Yeah.
They've raised over £1 billion for charities to wipe out hunger and poverty throughout the world. So, like, awesome, good job, Richard.
Yeah, you can't criticize that. And speaking of things you can't criticize, there is the charity sort of pseudo sequel to this film, Red Nose Day, actually.
We can't criticize it.
Well, we can and we will.
Yeah.
But I just mean that it's not a real sequel to the movie.
Yeah.
It's basically a long advertisement for charity.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, you can't criticize the intention of all these actors coming back together in order to promote Red Nose Day and helping impoverished children. Yeah. I mean, that's great. And I'm sure it helped raise money in 2017. But yes, it's horrible.
Yeah. He also did one for 4 Weddings and a Funeral, which I haven't seen. But yeah, I don't know if there's any point to it, really. Right?
I mean, the point is to raise money. But yeah, as far as what it does with the characters, we have a few, not all of the characters, but a number of them get little follow-up scenes, and it doesn't give you anything other than making Andrew Lincoln's character even more creepy.
Not just that. Yeah, let's talk about that. Because I was going to say, like, so he comes back and does the cue cards, obviously, but they're like, you know, like they haven't spoken to him in years.
Right. And he's
what the implication is, right?
Right. And he asks Keira Knightley, he's like, are you happy? And she's like, yeah, I'm happy with Peter. Leave me the hell alone.
Yeah. But like, imagine you hadn't spoken to a guy in years and this is the way he comes back into your life. And then, you know, he introduces his wife, who was like one of the models on this.
Kate Moss.
Oh, yeah, she's a model.
She
has cue cards too. So the two of them have worked out the entire conversation, like predictive text of what Keira Knightley is going to say next. Of like, yes, we met here. Ah, yes, he is a good person and all this and then like, it just doesn't, again, makes zero sense.
It really makes no sense whatsoever. And you think of him being married to Kate Moss, and he's like, you know what we're going to do today, my wife?
Yeah, go to the woman I really love.
Yeah, we're going to go over to this lady that I was in love with 15 years ago who I haven't seen, and we're going to make her really uncomfortable. Let's do that today.
Poor Sam. You know, they have the thing with Sam and Liam Neeson again, and he's like, Liam Neeson's like, if I remember correctly, the real only time that you've ever been in love is when you were 11 years old, and it was whatever, the Joanna, and you know, and then he's like, "You're dead. That's right. We met up in New York, and we want to get married now." Like, so he's just been pining away for her since elementary school, and that. So that's not good.
Man, your accent work here is something.
Josh, you do Sam.
No, I can't. See, I know my limitations. I don't even try.
And then you know, Colin Firth and the Portuguese wife now have kids, and I think that's and Hugh Grant's now prime minister again, and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and the thing with the Colin Firth and the Portuguese wife is like, oh, so at the end of Love Actually, like his whole journey is that he like diligently learns Portuguese so that he can talk to her. And then 13 years later in this dumb sequel, he still can't speak Portuguese.
Yeah.
And she makes jokes about it. And their kids speak Portuguese, but he does. Like, what a terrible husband you are, Colin Firth.
Well, Laura Linney marries that guy, doesn't she?
She appears to have a different boyfriend.
Oh, a different guy.
Yeah, Patrick Dempsey shows up. And it's a sort of a fake out where she answers the phone and you think maybe she's talking to her brother again, but it turns out she has this nice boyfriend who understands her care for her brother.
Because the brother murdered 2 guards and now is in solitary.
That is not what happens.
Oh,
but
sorry.
Maybe only in your
I believed you.
So yeah, it's very bad, and it almost weirdly like taints the nice feelings of the ending of Love Actually if you liked it. But again, it's all, it ends with like a montage of, hungry children. Like, it's not really a sequel to the movie.
No, I get it, Josh. I get it. Now let's talk about, look, there's too many actors to go over everyone and what they've all done.
Yeah.
We like just a few things. A ton of them have done other Christmas movies since then. Emma Thompson, Cruella this past year, Is
that a Christmas movie?
No, I'm not talking about just the Christmas.
Oh, okay.
But she is in the movie called Last Christmas, which was from 2019.
The one with Emilia Clarke. Yeah, that's not very good.
But I'm not really talking about that. I'm just saying, like, what kind of some of the big stars have been doing recently. And she's going to be in Matilda, the musical version on screen. Colin Firth doing The Staircase, obviously, Kingsman, King's Speech. Both Oscar winners, those two, you know.
Kingsman was an Oscar, or did it win for special
King's
effects?
Speech.
King's Speech, but not Kingsman.
I meant Emma. And
Oh,
Colin
okay.
Firth,
Yeah.
Chiwetel is directing a movie. Did you know that?
Yeah, didn't that come out? Wasn't that at festivals or something? Is that The Boy Who Something with the Wind or something? Isn't that what he directed?
I don't know. He's got one called Rob Peace that he wrote
Okay,
and
maybe that's
directed.
another one, or maybe I'm totally wrong.
Yeah. Keira Knightley doing Boston Strangler. She's in a Christmas movie right now, Silent Night, that you watched.
Yeah, that's like the opposite of Love, actually. It's about the world is ending and literally every character dies.
Yeah.
So, but it's Christmas.
Way to spoil the movie for everyone.
Well,
Josh.
that's like the concept of the movie is that they're all going to die. That's what it introduces itself with.
Joe, the manager, Gregor Fisher, is in a new one that I would like, I think, called The Inn at the End of the World. Do you know about this?
No.
It's based on a bestseller, Josh. It's a book.
Well,
Yeah. About people who don't want to be like in London or wherever during the holidays. So there's like a contest and like 5 random people get to go to like the inn at the very most remote part of Scotland or something.
Sure.
That sounds fun to me. Bill Nighy was in Arthur Christmas. So there's another Christmas
Arthur
movie.
Christmas is good.
That is good.
It's
Yeah.
an Aardman film. And this movie was like Bill Nighy's breakout role, really.
In America, I'd say.
Yeah, but even in Britain, I mean, he'd done some TV and a lot of stage work. But as far as being a movie star, in either place, I feel like this was really the one that brought him to people's attention, this later in his life.
So he's doing a movie based on actually, I saw this story on Real Sports years ago it's called the Homeless World Cup, about homeless soccer teams. Soccer teams comprised of homeless people who play in a World Cup in, like one city. Seems like Richard Curtis could help them raise money.
Yeah, maybe so.
And then obviously Hugh Grant just having such a good run right now. I loved A Very English Scandal. I loved him in that. He's great in The Gentleman. Obviously, Paddington 2. We know he's doing that. And then coming up, he's in the new Guy Ritchie one, which has a horrible name, Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre,
Yeah. I mean, he seems like, this is a height of the example of him as like this king of romantic comedies that, along with Richard Curtis, he really was in the 90s and early 2000s. But with some of that stuff that you mentioned, he's really trying to give himself a bit more grit and edge.
He's done it. He's
Yeah.
been he's like had probably the most unique transformation since like Bill Murray or something.
Right.
Like
but I
that.
mean, I think what's interesting about that, and I haven't seen all those things you mentioned, but I like watching him on The Undoing, for example,
Right.
is he uses that I'm a charming, good looking guy image to sort of as an entry point to being devious and sinister.
I love that, man.
Yeah.
He's really pushing himself. Maybe not in the upcoming film Dungeons and Dragons, which he's also in, but
Yeah.
hey, that's okay.
Well, you gotta get paid.
And who really became a huge star since this movie was Martin Freeman. Who,
Yes.
Yeah, who's excellent. Fargo. Interesting that both he and Billy Bob are that, and then Billy Bob plays the president in this. He was in A Christmas Carol, I think last year, or another movie of it.
Oh yeah, was that the one with the Tom Hardy one? Did he play Bob Cratchit? Maybe.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah,
The Hobbit, obviously.
of course.
And let me tell you, Josh, on BritBox, there's a great British mini 6-part series called A Confession that he's the star of that is really, really awesome.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. I know that was a lot. I just
Right.
wanted to give these guys, like, they're all great. They're all working. Literally every actor in here is pretty much working all the time if they want to be.
Except one, Rickman.
Well, yeah, because he's dead.
But he
Yeah.
was like, I mean, he's like
Yeah.
he's Alan Rickman steals every movie that he's in.
the best.
He
One
really
of
is,
the
yeah.
best.
Right.
Ever.
No, he is great. And because he had died, Emma Thompson decided not to be in the pseudo sequel to do a follow-up with her character because she didn't want to sort of dishonor his memory or
Rickman
whatever.
from the greatest of all Christmas movies, Die Hard.
Yes, of course.
Which we'll probably cover at one point on
yeah,
this show.
you'd think that we'll get to it eventually.
It's an amazing film.
Yes. You did mention like a ton of people there. I just want to mention like 2 others. Thomas Brody Sangster, who is the kid. This was his debut as Liam Neeson's stepson and has gone on he was on Game of Thrones, and he was just recently nominated for an Emmy for The Queen's Gambit.
Who did he play on Game of Thrones?
Some guy. I don't know. I stopped watching it. But,
some guy.
He was Georgian something, maybe. I don't know any of their names.
Georgian.
Yeah, exactly. You watched it. You should know.
That's what I'm asking you.
Yeah.
Georgian.
But my point being, like, he made a transition from child
did.
acting to adult acting. And the one person who has a big role in this movie who really didn't become a bigger star, Martine McCutcheon, who plays the assistant that the prime minister falls in love with, does some TV stuff and hosting and was a pop singer for a minute. But really, you'd think she would have parlayed this into something bigger.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you on her star prowess, though, because she seems to be more of a personality, but she's still like a huge personality and has had like multiple hit singles, multiple hit albums, and is in just a ton of television, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like more as a personality and a host rather than as an actor.
Yeah, which is fine.
No,
we don't
fine.
judge.
But I mean, I do think she's very charismatic here, and she has a lot of chemistry with Hugh Grant. And you think she could have also gone on, like Keira Knightley or whatever, to do a lot of romantic comedies, and just really she didn't.
I got to say this: I think Andrew Lincoln is not good in this movie, and he became a much better actor from The Walking Dead on.
Yeah, maybe he needed to fall in love with zombies. I will say, like, watching him in this movie, more, I think, than any of the other actors, the contrast for Andrew Lincoln between this movie and the Red Nose Day sequel, you're like, wow, does he look different and has aged, even almost more than the kid.
Well, that's fair. And Joanna comes back in the sequel too.
Right. But I mean, like, Thomas Brody Sangster at 26 just looks like a taller version of himself at 12, I think.
Yeah. But Andrew, I feel like there's a much more self-confidence in the way he performs at this point in time.
Andrew Lincoln?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I didn't watch much of The Walking Dead, but obviously it's a very different thing. And I just wanted to mention, we talked about how much backlash there is to this film. And I feel like, not that it didn't exist before, obviously A.O. Scott, for example, right, as soon as this came out, hated it. But Lindy West, who was a critic and author, wrote an article in 2013 for Jezebel, just like ripping this movie apart, that went really viral. And I feel like that was one of the, like, a moment when that backlash kind of went to another level. And I read that article again, and she's very successful. She created the TV show Shrill with Adie Bryant, based on a book that she wrote. But that article is, if you don't like watching, you think Love Actually is painful, reading that article is 10 times more painful.
Do you have any quotes for us?
I didn't want to quote it because I just hated it so much. But it's just so overwritten, and it's so much of a, like, look at me kind of article. Like, I don't know. It's the kind of writing that I really dislike. And the kind of thing where reading it, even if I agreed with some of the points that she was making about Love Actually, she comes off as so smug and condescending that it just made me want to not agree with her.
Did she make it all about herself?
Yeah, not so much about herself as a person, but about her, like, superiority to the idiots who would enjoy this movie, kind of thing, and the idiots who would make this movie.
Bill Nighy won a BAFTA for this, Josh.
Good for him.
Best supporting actor. Yeah, that's all I got on.
All right. Well, I think we've really thoroughly covered this.
Yeah,
film.
We did it. We gave it. Yep. Gina, have you called any of your friends?
Yeah, get them to come over. See what can happen when Jason puts on his fake British accent.
Hello, I'm from Jolly Old England. I am, governor.
I think she's going to make me watch the sequel after you guys leave, because she didn't know it existed. So.
Oh man! Well, luckily
it's only 17
it's
minutes.
really short. So,
okay.
It's not really, like, again, it's not really a movie. So
and not
you'll be fine.
Good.
And very, very bad. Yes. So that is Love Actually, and that is this episode of Awesome Movie Year. Give us some love on social media.
Josh, give us some love on social media. I'm Jason Harris Comedy, or Jay Harris Comedy, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I need a new website for Christmas, New Year's, my birthday, Arbor Day, and any other holiday coming up, Flag Day, whatever you need. We have a website called awesomemovieyear.com. You can listen to the stream of that here. We are on social media, Awesome Movie Year on Facebook and Instagram, Awesome Movie Pod on Twitter.
I am at joshbellhateseverything.com, where there might be my one post a year coming up there soon. And Josh Bell Hates Everything on Facebook, and at Signal Bleed on Twitter. And listen to our producer David Rosen's awesome podcast, Piecing It Together.
Check out Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow us on social media at Piecing Pod. And also, since it's the Christmas season, if you want to get us a little gift, Spotify just started doing star rankings. So we always ask you to rate and review on Apple Podcasts and all that. Well, now you can do it on Spotify too. So 5 stars is really nice.
Yeah. Do it because of Christmas.
Yeah, much better than signing up for Dave's Patreon.
Yeah, you can do that too, but you know.
Yeah, give us that gift too. We still have a bonus episode, I think, that's exclusive to Patreon. If you want to sign up for that, it's by David Rosen on Patreon. You can listen to some extra stuff from us. And if you tune in next time, we have, speaking of bonuses, a whole season of bonuses coming up. What is in our next episode,
That's
Jason?
right, Josh. It's a new year. And with that, we are going to look back on all the old years that we covered. Seasons 1 through 9, all the years that we've looked at. We are going to pick movies we've skipped over that we wanted to cover, but didn't fit into the schedule in each of those. So we're going to be jumping around from each of these years and picking some great movies, maybe some not so great movies. But we're going to start with a box office giant, Josh, and a giant film for most people with taste. It's called Smokey and the Bandit from 1977.
So tune in next time for the season premiere of our next season with Smokey and the Bandit. And thanks for listening to Awesome Movie.
Thank you for listening to Awesome Movie Year. Make sure to follow Awesome Movie Year on Facebook, at Awesome Movie Pod on Twitter, and at Awesome Movie Year on Instagram. And if you like the show, review us and rate us with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.